Welcome, and thank you for joining for another whiskey review. Today, we're going to go back to Signatory's Cask Strength collection and a Mortlach 15-year-old. Dustin, this one aged initially in just what it says hogsheads, could be anything, could be bourbon, could be sherry, but finished for 23 months in fresh sherry.
Okay.
51.8% ABV. This is cask number 8, bottle 364.
Does it actually say fresh?
Fresh sherry.
Oh, cool. I've never seen that from Signatory before.
Neither have I. This came from our good buddy Keith from the Multi-Man Cave. We were drinking on a couple of his bottles that he left us at the end of them. Bottles we thought at least worth bringing it to you guys.
We barely saved enough of this one for a review, so.
We did. We were going after a few of them pretty hard. But I tell you what, I know because I've never seen the fresh sherry on any of them either. But I tell you what, we were kind of impressed with this one. I'll give you a little bit more of my pour. And we saved a little bit of it to bring you guys in a review. So,
we had this probably 2 or 3 times with Keith, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we felt, so this was, sometimes, I know we got a couple guys who are like, I like when you guys review stuff you've really had, and, you've had a couple times.
We've had this a few times.
So this was, essentially a donated bottle from Keith, but we definitely been in this one a couple times.
Dark. Look at that rich color.
I always get nervous when Signatory goes this dark.
Fresh sherry, Dustin, 23 months. It's a very exact number.
They didn't want to go 2 years.
And I'm getting that meaty Mortlach and a bunch of sherry.
What is it? What do they call it? The Beast of Dufftown?
This is living up to that beastly name, at least on the nose.
I don't think they've overdone the oak on this sherry, which is good. Because, that color, good God, that almost seems like they just burned the cask to try to give it some more color.
They said fresh. You know what that means?
Usually it means wet.
Yeah, a little something left in there.
Maybe they burned it and put sherry back in there to get it wet.
Yeah, it's initial hogsheads, but I'm guessing, those could have been ex-bourbon cask maturation.
Yeah, earthy, but, we've kind of had we've been talking about earthy notes here a lot lately, Mike. This isn't like that Play-Doh, plasticine, like you kind of went out and got lost in a forest that, full of kids' toys.
No, this is meaty. Meaty and dark.
Meaty, dark, definitely a little bit of burnt brisket kind of notes coming on here.
Mm-hmm.
Burnt tips.
Yeah, it's almost beef brisket on a bun that has black pepper on it.
Yeah, it's
black
almost
pepper seeds.
It's almost getting into a soy sauce type note here.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite.
It's almost like beef brisket with cold slaw with vinegar on it.
Yeah, there might even be maybe some kind of teriyaki note or.
I'd go as far as teriyaki glaze.
Yeah, it's kind of reminding me of a Chinese food type seasoning they might have done. Sweet, meaty, not something I would generally go for, but something that's really fun to have now and then.
If it's the house special, we're going with it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a berry note here. A little bit of dark prunes, not so much raisins. I'm not getting any chocolate notes on the nose. More again, meat and earth. A little bit of burnt, but not overburnt. Overall, actually, probably one of my favorite Mortlach noses.
Silky, rich. It's both silky and dense. Almost no alcohol by it whatsoever. Beautiful. That sherry cask really intermingles incredibly well. I would say, I'm only not going to say a little bit simple on the palate. You could just call this, a little bit of a sherry overcoat, sherry bomb, but it's kind of woven in through the whole experience. It's a little bit of that more waxiness, meatiness kind of holds up to it, but it kind of gets washed away with that cask maturation. Thoughts?
So, I definitely find that I tend to like my single malts to be on the sweeter side, and this is not that. But they've somehow, that silky, velvety thing you're talking about, they've done that so well here, and they brought out this, again, initially up front, it's very aggressive, assertive. To me, I think it's got a nice little bit of alcohol kick there, but I can see on the finish it kind of goes away, so I can see where you're kind of coming from. Very complex up front, but it doesn't last. But it's super aggressive, assertive, meats and a little sherry, a little bit of maybe it was chocolate, maybe it's not. I don't know. It's a little bit of sweetness, but it's it's almost more like some kind of sauce you put on a steak, maybe that's coming in there. That's it's kind of chocolatey, but it's not. It's it's the chef's special that he's put together.
Yeah, almost liqueur-ish in its arrival for me.
Dare I say a coffee liqueur?
Good, yeah, you go there.
I could see a little bit of that, yeah. Coffee liqueur.
Yeah, I'm not picking up a ton of the Mortlach, spirit, from this because it's definitely heavy cask influence. Which with the cask strength collection,
But we're getting that meatiness to it. I think that's there.
Yeah, you that's the only remnant that's really there.
Now, sweetness did come up nicely with water. I do recall that I just think in general the sherry signatories really do benefit a lot from water. So might go into with more water here in a second, actually.
Yeah, I'm guessing this is Oloroso sherry, would be my guess.
Has to be.
Or I get the stickiness from a PX, but I've been wrong about that before.
I mean, I'm getting all the dryness that you would expect from an Oloroso. So if it's not, it's weird PX.
Now I'm picking up some darker fruits, but again, juicy. I'm gonna get kind of a juicy bubblegum, juicy fruit type of note to it as well.
It really sweetened up, and yeah, you're right. It's juicy, meaty. I could still see this being on a steak.
This is a fun whiskey, and in a night where we drink a bunch of whiskeys, it's I understand why we gravitate to it. At least, it had dense enough cask maturation where we remembered it.
This is, I mean...
Tasting of a 20.
And we talk about how we like, really aggressive, heavily sherried whiskeys is like our last pour of the night. This is a really good example of a whiskey that would make that, like, you've had a couple whiskeys throughout the night. Maybe you'll start off with, like, a more bourbon cask, subtle, older whiskey.
Yeah.
Then maybe you transition into, a 50-50, something interesting. Maybe you have a bourbon or something, and now you're ready to end the night, and it's time for an aggressive... sherried beast.
We're going to have to go to the Catalan after this.
That's the only thing I can think of that is going to outshine this thing.
Agreed.
This is aggressive.
Yeah, overall, very enjoyable whiskey. A little bit simple, I would say, but that's my biggest knock on it. Nothing unpleasant. 15 years is a good, good time. I'm not getting a whole lot of oak notes, or I'm not getting super old whiskey, but I'm not getting young whiskey either.
It's interesting. Like, there's only like really one event on the palate, and it's it's like just after you brought it in, it's the mid palate. It's this really kind of aggressive explosion of different flavors, and it's really complex for about 2 seconds, and then it just kind of lingers, goes away a little bit, and leaves you with a nice whiskey. But you're right. I mean, it's simple, but there's something there for a moment that's just really dense and interesting, and there's probably a lot there I'd have to really work to piece apart.
Yeah, more like it can border on the kind of waxy, clanglish sort of density to the whiskey sometimes, especially when you have something that feels like it had an oily cask maturation to it like this. All right, Dustin, I drank all of mine, so as you can tell, I was somewhat pleased with it. Mm-hmm. It's time for a whiskey score. And I'm kind of going back between two numbers. And I'm going to go with the higher of the two numbers because I'm feeling generous and I'm really enjoying this whiskey right now. So I'm going to give it an 89 out of 100. But I could see it's probably more an 88, but at this point in the evening, it's really hit me, my palate in the right spot. I'll give it one extra point for enjoyment. It's probably an 88 as far as its whiskey, but I'm calling it an 89 because I can do whatever I want.
I'm going to go a little lower, Mike. I'm going to give it an 87. And I was kind of 87, 88. I went with the lower score because you really convinced me that there's just not enough there.
So simple.
It's a little too simple. I actually like the nose a lot more than the palate, and it's not that there's anything wrong with the palate. There's not an off note here. It's just kind of simple.
It's forgettable, but man, while you have it here, you appreciate a pretty much flawless sherry bomb whiskey.
It's dark, it's aggressive, but it's just not doing like I want it sweeter. I want it to be a little more. I want sweetness, man, and it's really lacking. It's just kind of.
We'll forget about that after we drink this.
Keith, really appreciated this one. I've enjoyed it every time I've had it.
Yep.
It does one thing really well on the palate, and for me that's an 87.
Mortlach.
But I can give it an 88 maybe,
You ain't wrong.
If Keith was here, I'd probably give it an 88. He's not, so 87.
You ain't wrong. That's what it is. If you guys get a chance to try this one, we'd like to know what you guys think. Dustin, until next time, we'll do it for folks.
Happy drinking.
We'll see you then.